In this video, I'll be showing you 5 tips and tricks to help you find cheap flights that will save you money. This includes going over popular sites like Google Flights or Momondo that you're probably familiar with. However, I will also be covering other tools or hacks that you probably have never heard of before. This includes a website that exploits the airline industry, which caused United Airlines to file a lawsuit against them. Thankfully, that lawsuit was dismissed, but regardless, these tricks will help you save hundreds of dollars on flights and will take your travel game to the next level. To start things off, we're going to go over very general tips or advice that will help you on your very next flight. For example, you might have wondered, is there a best day of the week to book airfare? Some people believe if you are looking for a flight on a Tuesday over a Saturday, that will give you cheaper rates. This is simply not true. According to a Google analysis, if you shop for flights on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, or Thursdays instead of Saturdays or Sundays, prices have only been 1.9% cheaper on average over the past 5 years. As a matter of fact, the inventory is managed more actively during the week. This is both a good and a bad thing. That means there is more fluctuation in prices from Monday to Friday, and you are more likely to see some sort of price variation. Essentially, prices are either moving up or down throughout the week, and you are taking a gamble. So if looking at the best day of the week to book travel doesn't matter, what about looking at the best day of the week to actually travel? Google reports historically it's been cheaper to fly in the middle of the week than on the weekend. On average, flights that depart on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday have been 12% cheaper than weekend departures. That makes sense, right? Most travelers that are going on vacation would probably leave on a Thursday or Friday and then go home on Sunday, and a lot of business travel takes place on Mondays. Therefore, Tuesdays and Wednesdays usually aren't busy days to travel, and as a result, we'll have cheaper flights. Of course, this applies to holidays as well. Probably know firsthand that airfare goes up around the holiday season because a lot of people are traveling during that time. But if you do want to save a little bit of money, you could look into traveling on the morning or night of the actual holiday itself, when most people will still be visiting family. The last general tip that I wanted to cover before going into the high-level tips is that you should be looking for flights at least 3 weeks before your departure date. Procrastination may work in school, but not when it comes to booking flights. Flight prices can spike around 25% 2 weeks out and another 30% 1 week out from the departure date. Instead, for travel within the United States, start booking 21 to 60 days out, and for international travel, start booking between 45 to 60 days out from your departure date. The next tip is to almost always use some sort of flight comparison website. Yes, you may have status with an airline, or you enjoy wasting your time and money, so you book directly on the airline's website. Because what I found is that most airline sites are more slow and confusing than your uncle when he's 20 Bud Lights deep. Personally, I always take a look at Google Flights before booking my airfare. It's really useful for comparing your simple round-trip flights, and you have tons of filters and features to choose from, such as price alerts, number of layovers, specific airlines, and more. I would also recommend searching for one-way flights as well, because it can be cheaper than booking a round-trip flight. When you book a round-trip flight, you are usually flying on the same airline down and back, and they control the price of both flights. But when you book 2 one-way flights, you have a lot more options and can mix and match different airlines to find the best deal. Of course, you could do this on Google Flights, but you could also use Kayak Hacker Fare to find 2 one-way flights for your next trip. But here are a few other useful ways that you could use Google Flights to find cheap flights. On both the departing flight and the returning flight, you can select multiple airports to travel through. This can be helpful sometimes because although the airports are close to each other, one may be cheaper to fly in and out of. For example, flying from Honolulu to New York, you can see that there is a cheaper flight from flying into Newark as opposed to JFK for these dates. But let's say you are a little more flexible on your dates and where you want to travel, so you could do this next method instead. On Google Flights, click on the map down here, enter in your departing airport, Make sure flexible dates are selected, then choose the time frame you want to travel. From there, you could literally see what flights will be the cheapest and choose your next vacation from this method. Of course, if you want to see specific dates and you're still flexible with your destination, you could do that as well. Again, I use Google Flights the most often, but here are other popular flight comparison sites: Skyscanner, Momondo, Hopper, Kiwi, Airfare Watchdog, ITA Matrix by Google, and Kayak. A quick tip is that no matter which site you use, there are two key variables that will help you get the cheapest flight. Try to be flexible on your dates and flexible on your destination. Just like if you were a gymnast, the more flexible you are, the better off you will be. Of course, sometimes we have to take vacation at certain times during the year, and there are only so many Eiffel Towers in the world. So what else can you do to save money on flights if you aren't flexible? The next tip is pretty common, but maybe you haven't tried it out personally. Before booking your next cheap flight, clear your cookies on your web browser or use a VPN. Cookies are a way for companies to track your activity on the internet. Most of the time, these brands use cookies to show certain ads in front of you based on your past internet history. Sometimes it's a good thing because you will get an ad placement related to products that you are already interested in or you searched for. But unfortunately, airlines use cookies against us by hiking up flight prices when they notice us searching for flights multiple times. To combat that, you could clear your cookies, which is usually found in the settings of your web browser, or you could use an incognito or private window. Taking it a step further, you could also use a VPN because flight prices can vary depending on where you are searching from. A VPN is a virtual private network which helps you stay private on the internet. One of the ways it does that is by disguising your location, which means you could be in your 100 square foot flat in Manhattan, but the internet thinks you are in Hawaii or wherever you may choose. This is important for us to find cheap flights because the same flight might be cheaper if you are viewing it from another location. For example, a flight from Honolulu to Tokyo may be $1,200 when I view it from Hawaii, but if I use a VPN and view it from India, that same flight might be $1,100. It usually isn't a big difference, but sometimes it's worth a shot since it's so easy to do. You know what else is so easy to do? That's right, subscribing to my channel down below. The fourth tip to help you find cheaper flights is to look into hidden cities and stopovers. We will talk about hidden cities in a second, but a stopover is a layover on steroids. You know why flights with layovers are so much cheaper than non-stop flights? Because no one wants to be at the airport for longer than they need to be. And stopovers take that to the next level because it's a trip with a layover that is for a day or longer. To find these flights, you could use your classic flight comparison tool like Google Flights, or you could use the website Air Wanderer. Currently, Air Wanderer is taking a stopover themselves and should be back working sometime soon in early fall of 2022, which to me already passed, so I'm not sure why their website isn't up and running by now. Finding a stopover is fun because you could explore or adventure another city besides the actual destination that you're trying to go to. This is how you could get like 2 trips in one. Now going back to hidden cities, no, it's not the city of Atlantis or some other city found in Indiana Jones. Instead, a hidden city is when you book a flight to a destination, but there is a layover. And it's not just any layover because the city you have a layover in is actually the city that you want to visit. And to book hidden city flights, you could use a website called Skiplagged. This is the site that made airline companies rightfully angry and United Airlines sued them. There is a catch to making hidden city reservations, but let's talk about that after I show you an example of how this works. If I want to fly from Hawaii to Atlanta, I could book a standard one-way Delta Airlines flight on November 10 for $800. Or I could use Skiplagged to get a similar flight for just $200. In this case, Atlanta is the hidden city. To do this, I would book the flight through Skiplagged and take the flight from Honolulu to Atlanta normally. But when I get to Atlanta, instead of going to my next connecting flight, I just leave the airport because that's where I wanted to end up anyway. That would mean I miss my flight from Atlanta to Boston. Now here is the catch to doing cheap hidden city flights like this. First, First, you can't check a bag. If you check a bag, your bag will make it to the final destination even though you got off and stayed in the layover city. Another risk is that if your flight itinerary changes, your whole trip may be messed up. Using the previous example again, what if the flight changes from having a layover in Atlanta to having a layover in Los Angeles? Normally, that's fine because the final destination would still be Boston either way, but if you're trying to hit Atlanta as the hidden city, you're out of luck. The last most important risk is that airlines obviously don't like this. When you do a hidden city trip, you are essentially missing a connecting flight and airlines take note of this. If you miss too many flights and the airlines catch onto you, you may be banned permanently from these airlines. At the end of the day, yes, using skip lagged and flying to hidden cities is legal, but is it worth being potentially banned from an airline? You could do that every once in a while, but to be safe, you could use this last tip to book your next cheap flight instead. I talk a lot about credit cards on this channel, so I have to mention it here in a video about cheap flights or traveling for free. As many of you are aware, you could book flights or upgrade seats to first class with credit card points. For example, you could fly from Los Angeles to New York one way in business class for 60,000 United miles, which is equal to 60,000 Chase points. You could get those points in just one sign-up bonus. Not only can credit cards help you travel for free, but they could also make traveling a lot more enjoyable with things like airport lounge access, TSA pre-check, and airline statuses. My favorite travel cards right now are the Amex Platinum, Chase Sapphire Preferred, and Capital One Venture X. If you want to learn more about credit cards and how to take advantage of them, watch these videos here and subscribe down below. I hope you could use these tips to book your next cheap flight. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Shoots!